Parents with nanny cams, what have you caught your babysitter doing? This was my equivalent of pre-K. All the kids were regressing in their movement ability and getting really fat, so they set up spy equipment. Turns out one carer was doubling every baby's food portions and forcefully overfeeding them. Wish I had a nanny cam. My stepsister was watching my brother with disabilities for me. She would dump out the contents of his capsule meds and use them later. Didn't find out about it till he started having seizures constantly and ended up in the hospital for the second time. This isn't a bad one. My parents caught the babysitter carrying our 60-pound golden retriever like he was a baby. We caught our maintenance guy spooning with our 130-pound mastiff on the floor. We encourage their love as best as we can now. I've been a pretty regular weekend nanny for an amazing family for 4 years now. They've cycled through a couple different weekday nannies since I've been with them. There's only one monitor, and it's in the little dude's room. Once the mom showed me on the camera why they let one go. Little dude said, "Mommy said I don't have to do that." And the nanny snapped back, "Well, it doesn't matter. Mommy is a witch." And then dragged the kid out of the room by his shirt. Super fired. For your information, they only showed you footage from the decoy camera. Not a nanny cam because this happened in the 90s, and I don't think we had them in Scotland then. But my mom came home early one day because she had become suspicious of our nanny, as my sister and I never slept after a day with her. She found both my sister and I in bed in the middle of the day. Turned out my nanny had been dosing us up with child medicine to make us sleep all day so she could sit and do nothing. This happened at my friend's child's daycare center. They were giving them Benadryl or something, pill form, and the kids were sleeping all day. My friend had chosen a daycare rather than a babysitter because she thought it'd be safer. My mom put a nanny cam on my sister's bedroom. The only disturbing thing my mom allegedly saw was the babysitter crying while holding my sister. Turns out the babysitter just had a miscarriage the day before. Oof, that'll rip your heart out. Well, a case which happened near where I live. Woman used to work, husband out of country. Had a 2-year-old kid. They hired a nanny to look after him during daytime. Day by day, kids started looking malnourished, so she set up a spy cam. Apparently, the lady used to bring her kid and feed him all the food left for the kid she was supposed to be babysitting. Then she would feed the kid cheap biscuits. She was promptly handed over to the police. That happened to my uncle. The babysitter was stealing formula for her own child and giving him watered-down formula. My uncle got sicker and sicker. They fired the babysitter, but he eventually died. I have a camera to check in on my rabbit when I'm not there. The biggest surprises were mostly just how almost nobody followed my pet-sitting instructions. The one exception, ironically, was my brother, who claimed to hate the rabbit and always wanted to get rid of it. I got an alert one day that my camera had detected movement while my bro was there taking care of him, and I decided to take a peek. I opened the app connected to the camera and saw my bro walk into my room, lay on the floor, and start playing with my rabbit. It just warmed my heart. First rule of siblings: never show your siblings that you love them or their pets. A friend caught his nanny hitting their kid for interrupting that day's binge of the TV show Friends. Hope the cops were called. Not me, but my aunt's friend set up a nanny cam because she noticed that every time she changed her child's diaper, the child would start crying a lot more than usual. Turns out when they watched the nanny change her diaper, she would use Clorox wipes if they were nearby, instead of grabbing the baby wipes. What the frick? My mom suspected our maid of stealing the silverware, and she's just really nosy. Anyway, the maid was indeed stealing the silverware. I think that was overshadowed, though, by my dad messing around with her. If watching adult videos has taught me anything, your dad was just punishing her for stealing. I travel the U.S. for work, and am fortunate enough to be able to bring my 2 beagles with me. They've never been away from my side longer than the time I've been at work. They're 10 and 13. I have a camera that I use to check in on them sometimes, mostly because my larger beagle is quite the ingenious guy, opening doors, scooting chairs over places so he can jump up onto the counters, etc., etc. Last year I was in Oregon and had to go home to Michigan for an emergency. I do not fly with them. I will only drive. So I was in a pickle and reluctantly hired someone off of Rover that was willing to come stay over at my hotel room for 3 days. She was great, kept up on texting me about the dogs, said things like tossing them a ball right now, so I would check in via the cam when I thought it was appropriate. This woman was amazing. Not only was she playing with them enough to make them exhausted, she was even teaching them new tricks, making them use their brains to solve puzzles, and even got my 42-pound beagle to get up on her back so that she could do push-ups. She was an avid CrossFitter. I was extremely happy. What the F? This is Wholesome. Something isn't right here. We once caught the nanny putting charcoal to feed them as a snack. This woman claimed that she thought it was a snack. It was in a charcoal box. My brothers were 4. Babies can have a little charcoal as a snack. My family bought one to see our dogs when we leave on vacation twice a year. It's one where they can hear us, and we thought it'd be great. We hardly used it. We also asked our maid to dog sit for us while we were out. Once, when we looked at the feed, we saw the dog sitter there a solid 30 minutes early just petting the dogs and playing with them. She's since retired from working, but she was the sweetest old lady, and we love her. Another time, my dad left a wad of cash on top of the washing machine, about $600, and she put a rubber band around it with a note saying he misplaced it. We have a security camera in my bedroom for my free roam bunny, so we can keep an eye on her whilst on work, if we go on holiday and whatever else. Well, my dad is 50 and is a big bloke who acts like he doesn't like pets, and he comes over to visit one day whilst I was out. He went into my room and crouched down, calling the bunny. He spent an hour trying to pet the rabbit and kept repeating in a soft voice, "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to pet you and see how fluffy you are." He just about crapped himself when I spoke through the security camera to tell him she's very fluffy. I'd definitely crap my pants if I was randomly called out for trying to pet a bun-bun. Chasing my cats around with a broom, hitting them. She's since been fired. From a cannon, I hope. My grandpa was staying with my parents, but they figured it best to hire the regular sitter to watch my younger siblings overnight since they didn't think my grandpa was up to the task, and they were attending a wedding a couple hours away and made plans to spend the night in a hotel nearby. They had set up a nanny cam in a couple rooms, my siblings' bedroom, the master bedroom, living room, and kitchen, all motion activated. They normally wouldn't bother looking through the footage if everything seemed fine upon returning home, and their master bedroom cam had never been triggered before. When they returned, they noticed that the cam in the master bedroom had been triggered, so they decided to take a look. Cut to footage of my grandpa and the sitter, both naked, aggressively making out from the entrance of the room, staggering while intertwined towards the bedroom, and then about 20 minutes of banging on my parents' bed. The sitter was about 20 years old, and my grandpa was around 70 at the time. My dad called me immediately after he saw the footage, laughing his butt off, and I could hear my mom crying in the background, completely mortified from what she had just witnessed, and shouting at my dad to throw out the sheets and kick out Grandpa. My mom called the sitter to confront her, and she just apologized and said there was connection or some crap to that matter. When she asked my grandpa what he was thinking, he just said, "At my age, you must seize every opportunity." I wish there was audio for the build-up. I lay awake at night sometimes just wondering what kind of game my grandpa was talking to get in that sitter's pants. Man, I hope I'm healthy enough to be able to do this when I'm 70. I was the kiddo. My mom often tells the story of how she watched me give a big ol' hug to my babysitter, who just broke down out of nowhere after serving me lunch. Turns out her dad had died a month back, and it just wasn't a good day for her. I still remember you, Ms. Yancey. I hope you're doing just fine now. She just wanted to be called Miss Phillip. The couple I sat for had a nanny cam in their living room, the kind that went in bears. They got me on video giving their 2-year-old the Heimlich after he tried to eat a rock. We have a nanny cam, and we caught our nanny dancing with our baby, making him laugh and giving him kisses. She's the best, and the cameras gave us the peace of mind to know she really treats him like her own. Last year I was working for a family that had a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old. Toddler was down for a nap, so it was just me and the baby. I put on some Otis Redding and was singing to her, and her mom walked in the door as I was twirling her around. I was so embarrassed to be caught, but she thought it was the cutest thing. I pay for my neighbor to feed the stray cats in my garden when I'm away for days at a time, and the camera caught my neighbor trying to come in by bamboo pole vaulting one time. He nailed it amazingly. Once, at the very last moment when no other babysitter was available, I hired one that was sort of notorious for not being good. Not dangerous or anything like leaving the child unattended, but like the type where she would not console the child if they were crying, punish them for doing small things. While away, I was very suspicious, so I continuously was glancing at the baby cam. The babysitter was playing with him, singing songs, and completely engaging him well beyond the way you would expect somebody who was considered a bad babysitter to act. Essentially, what happened was the babysitter got hired by a crazy parent who didn't like her at all, so they spread a bunch of mumbo-jumbo through the neighborhood. When I came home, I gave her a very large tip, and she was the one I always hired whenever I needed a babysitter. Too long didn't read. At the last moment, hired a babysitter that was rumored to be bad. Turns out she was a really good babysitter who once got hired by a crazy parent who didn't like her, so they spread a bunch of bullcrap. I got a nanny cam to keep an eye out for my elderly grandfather, especially when the home aides were there. My grandfather started asking for lots of cash and couldn't remember what was happening to it. A brooch that my aunt was supposed to get disappeared. And then I heard reports of my grandfather being inappropriate with some of the home health aides. He was busted squirreling away his medication that he was supposed to be taking in his chair, giving money to an aide, and harassing another one. I've been taking care of elderly with dementia for 13 years. They lose the frontal lobe where the filter is. Little 90-year-old ladies who never swore a day in their life are like friggin' sailors. Men usually get frisky with the females. It's what happens with this disease. Not mine, but my friend's. We watched her daughter's nanny playing with her, singing to her, and just being so lovely. She was so good that all the other mums wanted to hire her. That just makes you sick to the core. Not a parent, caught my little sister's babysitter catching a good hour-long nap at 2 p.m., while my 1-year-old sister was up having the time of her life destroying my PlayStation. We didn't have a nanny cam, but my mom set up the camcorder when she suspected our babysitter was stealing, and then caught the babysitter stealing. She returned most of the stuff when my mom threatened to report her to the police. I think she should still have reported her anyway. Now she probably just went on stealing at other people's places. I think she learned her lesson. Next time, the camcorder will be stolen first. This isn't something that I caught a babysitter doing, but I remember that I once saw on TV the case of some parents that went with her baby to the doctor because she cried a lot for apparently no reason. The doctor told them that she looked really stressed and asked them if they were doing something that could make her act like that. They didn't. Then the doctor and the parents noticed some really tiny dots in the girl's belly, and they had no idea where they came from. The babysitter told them that she had no idea, but they didn't believe her and secretly put cameras to spy on what she was doing. Turns out that she was crazy. She was stabbing the baby with a needle from time to time and doing things like shaking her cradle incredibly hard to torment her. Of course, they called the police, confronted her, and she got arrested. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of this video and have a wonderful day. The family I nanny for told me that their previous nanny got caught doing loads of awful things. The couple that outraged me the most were, number 1, leaving their 3-year-old daughter in the tub with water up to her chest for 2 hours every day, while she sat in another room, unable to see said child. And number 2, once she went to run an errand with the same kid, and their doorbell camera caught her putting the kid in the car seat, but not buckling her, and then peeling off. The mom said you could see the toddler trying to buckle herself in before they took off. You should really only catch your nanny doing stuff like that once. My aunt has a nanny cam and found my older cousin's babysitter playing blackjack with him. She lost $50. She paid to babysit him at that point. I've caught her making pillow forts that are heavily resistant to the monsters that may or may not come out during heavy thunderstorms with my kiddo. 20 minutes after bedtime. Needless to say, she was dealt with appropriately. Rest in peace. I'm not a parent, rather the child's, and I had this nanny, or Yaya as we would call her. It became useless because she soon found out and kept unplugging the camera. It turns out she was slowly stealing money from my family. We fired her. If a hardwired camera got unplugged even once, I would immediately think someone tampered with it. I was the child's, and there weren't any nanny cams, but my parents had left a small bucket of toys and things to keep me busy, and they hired a babysitter to watch me while they both had to take overtime at work, and knew they would be gone most of the day. The babysitter moved that bucket of toys to another room, put me in a crib, and proceeded to go off and read or something, and left me there for hours with nothing to do, only coming back to check on me or feed me. My parents came back to me just sadly sitting in my crib. Wow, this made me sad. She stole a single puzzle piece of what we were trying to solve. Saw her put it in her pocket. Final straw was one of our potted plants. What a psychopath. What I learned today: people have more dogs than kids, if not equal. Indoor cameras hooked up to the same unit as the outdoor cams. Husband was walking to his study, saw a giant Huntsman spider, Australian here, and screamed like a little girl and jumped away. Needless to say, I bolted to the computer to watch the playback on repeat for a few minutes. I laughed so hard I had an asthma attack. I think that was the first time he ever called me a C word. Sarcastically, I will add. Jesus, husband totally justified. Those spiders are as big as dogs. Friends of ours don't have kids, but have dogs. They were going out of town and told the dog sitter about all of the cameras, including the one that's outside, but sometimes picks up reflections and will actively notify them of motion. The dog sitter seemed to get it, but she forgot to convey that to her boyfriend, who came out and walked around naked quite a bit. The dogs were naked too. Fair is fair. I was the one caught on camera a few times. Number one, a family who had bunnies caught me on camera booping noses to the beat of the song I was singing. Little bunny foo-foo hopping through the kitchen, picking up all the lettuce and munchy munchy munch. Number two, a different family saw me getting freaking tackled by their 95-pound Mastiff puppy, and they immediately called me to make sure I didn't have a concussion, since I just kinda laid there for a while. I was fine, I just got the wind knocked out of me. Number three, yet another different family saw me reading a book for their kids, and later complimented all the voices I make. I had no idea they could hear audio, and I got so embarrassed, since I really did go all out. I always heard little bunny foo-foo hopping through the forest, picking up the field mice and bopping them on the head. Made me happy to be reminded of it, though. Not a parent and not a nanny cam, but my uncle once set up a wildlife camera, the ones that hunters use, to get a photo if something happened in my great-grandmother's apartment. She was very demented, so she told us incoherent stories about how there were people there, stealing all her liquor and chocolates. Turns out she was the one who stole the goodies. But we also found out her other son, my other uncle, who no one has contact with due to his shady actions with his wife, had a key to the apartment and was regularly visiting at midnight to steal some jewelry. When I was around 12 years old, my parents caught my babysitter on camera stealing my Nintendo Entertainment System games and shoving them into her pants and shirt. They confronted her about it, and she kept denying it, until Ninja Gaiden fell out of her pant leg. My mom took her into a room and made her take out all the games she stole. She literally had games shoved under the strap of her bra on her back so that she could sneak them out of the house, and others were put inside the waistband of her underwear. She must have really thought about this for a while. Anyway, we got the games back, and she was sent home without pay. I dog sit for some neighbors, one of which told me she has a camera in the living room/dining room for her dogs. You know those ones that dispense treats? Anyways, I thought it was a strange essential oil diffuser until she told me what it was. I was being paid to play with them for an hour, but she found out that I was actually staying for 2 or 3 hours. When she asked me about it, I think I said something like, I'd want someone to do the same for my dog. Ever since then, she leaves me treats in the kitchen and even got me a Christmas present from the dogs. She picked up our pug Doogie and was dancing around the living room with him while that "Hey, I Just Met You" song was playing. Uncle told me this once when a babysitter was holding his daughter, my older cousin, when she was a baby. The baby was playing with her toys, and she somehow swallowed a small piece of something, and the babysitter performed the Heimlich, but for babies. There's a version of that for babies. I don't know where I found it, though. She saved my cousin, and her family was thankful. They have no idea where the babysitter is now, but right now she's supposed to be around her late 40s. Not a nanny cam, but the video baby monitor managed to catch our then 1.5-month-old projectile vomiting on me, and then straight up into the mouth and on the face of my husband 2 minutes later. One of those things that's funny now, but not at the time. Not a nanny cam, but a video. My sister-in-law sat the camera down thinking she turned it off. I have over an hour of her teasing my toddler in a mean way with candy and popsicles. She started telling him that he would get some, then held it just out of reach. She then ate it in front of him, making sounds. She was also calling him mean and weird names like Turd Muncher and Ricky Retardo. The camera got all the audio, but only some video. At the end of the video is when we got home. When I confronted her with the video, she started claiming I doctored it. I was a liar, a butthot, and hated her because she was prettier than my wife. She's not. That was the last time she was allowed around either of our kids unsupervised. She was the sister-in-law for 10-ish years and is now the crazy Karen ex-sister-in-law. I can't have a presence on social media because she attacks me all the time, says lies, etc. I'm also estranged from my brother because of her. 10 years of her warped his perception of our family. He still thinks some of the whacked-out things she accused our dad, sister, other brother, and various other family members of. No reasoning has convinced him of the truth. Not even the thought that if video evidence refutes some of the claims, then all can be considered suspects. I may get comments and advice of what I could do, but in the end, you can't fight crazy, and sometimes life is just not fair. The only thing I have done to make things better is ignore her. She eventually just starts attacking someone else, like an annoying yipping dog that just needs to annoy. As for my brother, I hope time will help to fix things. I also think that he might just be more like her than I think. Birds of a feather fly together. You saying she's not hotter than your wife is the comedic grace of this story. When she put my daughter down for her nap, she took a nap on the bed next to her. This isn't a bad thing at all. Different beds. 2-year girl who still needs a 90-minute power nap in the middle of the day. I just thought it was funny when I turned on the camera and saw them both napping. I used to babysit the world's greatest kiddo, and the parents actually encouraged me to nap alongside the child's. Literally the best naps ever. Caught the babysitter playing with herself on our couch. The babysitter was and still is my female cousin. I figured the best thing was to just say nothing, save the awkwardness. She did it a fair amount. I then mentioned our house cam by accident some months later, and her face dropped. I realized what I'd said, then casually threw in that I'd never checked it, again to save the awkwardness. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.